Welcome to Grandma's Verdict, and we invite you to watch a video with our new original story. How much longer? You asked for a week and it's been 2. Come on, sweetheart. Pack your things and get out. But Mrs. Peterson, you know we have nowhere to go. Stan? What about Stan? Stan is my grandson. You're nothing to me. And who knows if that little Paul is even related to us. It's no wonder Stan asked you to leave. Maybe it's not just about you being a bad wife. Kate looked at her with tears in her eyes. What are you talking about? Why am I a bad wife? And why isn't Paul his son? If you were a good wife, Stan would never have kicked you out. But anyway, I want you gone by the time I get back from my shift in the morning. Marcus paced from corner to corner. On the sofa, with a cold towel on her forehead, lay his wife. Anastasia, I don't believe it. You understand you couldn't have physically recognized her. You couldn't have, and that's that. It's been over 20 years. Marcus, I don't care about all your assumptions. I'm telling you again. I felt it. First I felt it and then I saw her. And then I knew it was her. No, it doesn't happen like that. Understand? Can't be for many reasons. First, too many years have passed. She looks in a way you can't even possibly imagine. Second, you know how they searched for her. You know how many people were looking for her. If she were in the city, she would have been found a long time ago. Anastasia sat on the sofa, her head down. She was silent for a while, then looked at her husband point blank. I don't understand where it all went. Where did everything that was between us go? You would never have said that before. Before you believed me, you loved me. Marcus sat down next to her. Anna, I'm just worried. You've already got it in your head that it's her. Then it will turn out that it's not. And then what? You'll turn into God knows what again. She pressed her hands to her chest. How can you not understand? Those other girls, they just looked like her. But here I felt it with my heart first, you understand? And only then did I start looking with my eyes for what had disturbed me so. Marcus shook his head. Anastasia, I don't know. Of course, as a father, I really want to believe it. But as a person, I understand perfectly well that miracles don't happen. They don't happen, you understand? A person who was lost as a child 20 years ago can't just be found. They can't. Do you think it's easy for me? Do you think I've forgotten her? No. I just don't allow myself to think about it. Anastasia looked at her husband with huge eyes. Marcus, I'm asking you for the last time, please. I promise you if it's not her, I won't do this anymore. I'll try not to look for those who might look like our daughter anymore. Marcus sighed and hugged his wife. Anna, how can I forbid you? Of course not. Just impossible. Okay, tell me, how did you meet, where? Anastasia immediately straightened up and became serious. I was coming from the market. I didn't want to take the car, I walked there. I thought I wouldn't buy anything, but then I saw some beautiful apples, some greens. In short, I had too much for a taxi. You know how I feel about them, so I decided to take a shortcut through the private sector. Marcus even jumped up. Anastasia, you were in that neighborhood? She nodded. I knew you'd be angry, so I kept quiet. The man sighed. Incredible. But you're not a child. A long, long time ago, more than 20 years ago, it was in that private neighborhood that a terrible tragedy had occurred. One that had divided their lives into before and after. At that time, Marcus was not yet so rich and influential, but he had already risen from the ranks of ordinary people. They had started their life in that private sector, and then they had moved, bought an apartment, and almost immediately a house. Not this one, of course, a much smaller one, but already in a good area of the city. It was clear that the acquaintances who had remained in the ghetto, as that place was called, were black with envy. But Anastasia still sometimes visited her friends, although Marcus had asked her never to do it without him. It was as if he had sensed something. Anastasia and her daughter were visiting a friend. When they were about to go home, it was already getting dark. They waited for a taxi for a long time. Then Anastasia decided to walk home. Her friend walked her halfway. Then they were on their own. She didn't call Marcus. She knew he would be angry. A blow to the head just as they were almost there. Her daughter's scream in darkness. She woke up a week later in the hospital, almost a vegetable. For a long time, she didn't understand where she was, what had happened. And when she did understand, when she found out that Marina was missing, she fell into a coma. Anastasia did not take part in the search because she was between life and death for 5 months. Everything had fallen on Marcus then. He was looking for his daughter, and he was torn between the search and his wife. Nothing, absolutely no leads. For a long time they suspected that same friend, but they couldn't prove anything. Then she moved away, and the search gradually died down. Anastasia herself would wander the streets, sometimes not even understanding where she was going or why she was there. A few times she met girls who resembled Marina in some way, and she would almost go mad. Each time it turned out to be a mistake, that the girls just looked similar. And each time an error was discovered, a tragedy would happen to Anastasia. She would simply fall into a terrible depression from which she could not get out without medical help. Marcus, the road was blocked that day, and there were a lot of people walking on that street. I wasn't alone. As I was passing one of the houses, a young woman came out of the gate. You see, she was still with her back to me, and my heart just stopped. Then she turned around and I saw your eyes. Yours. Do you understand, Marcus? He sighed. He knew it was just a figment of her imagination. But what could he do? Refuse his wife? And what if? Well, there's always a 1 in a million chance. Let's go. Show me this house, and then I'll decide what to do. Here, this is the house. Marcus stopped the car. He hadn't been here in so long. Many years. He sincerely hated this neighborhood. He sincerely tried to forget his life here. Stay here. I'll go in and ask. I'm going with you. Marcus looked at his wife's side and took out his phone. Gregory, come to this address immediately. And he dictated. Greg had been his head of security for many years. Marcus knocked and pushed the door open. A disheveled-looking man stood up from the table to meet them. The house was a mess. On the sofa lay a young woman in a red robe. Marcus looked at his wife questioningly. Anastasia shook her head negatively and motioned with her eyes to the wall. There hung a large photograph. This man, a young woman, and a very small child. Who are you? The man looked at them with cloudy eyes. They had had a good time yesterday, but today Stan had a headache. He couldn't have a hair of the dog because he had to work the night shift. My name is Marcus. I would like to talk to this woman. He nodded at the photo. With Kate? She doesn't live here anymore. I kicked her out with her little kid. So what? Maybe he's not even mine. This house is mine and she has nothing. From a group home. What, couldn't she live a normal life? Stan, don't drink. Stan, you have a family at home, you should be sleeping at home. What a princess. Marcus and Anastasia exchanged glances. So where is she now? I have no idea. You need her, you find her. And anyway, any information costs money. More men entered the house. Strong with short haircuts. You'll give us the information yourself for free. And you'll also tell us how you had the nerve to kick out a woman with a small child. The young woman on the sofa began to whimper. The men's faces were very unfriendly. Stan turned pale. Well, she probably went to my grandmother's. She has nowhere else to go. The grandmother's address and the address of the group home where she grew up. They quickly decided to go to the group home first. The conversation there was strange. No one knew where the girl had come from. No one could find her documents. And then some elderly orderly remembered that a local woman had brought her. Someone named Natalie, it seemed. Anastasia swayed. Natalie? Does she still live here? No, she left on the same day it seems, and that was it, she was gone. Although she promised to bring the girl's documents. And so it turned out. No one knew anything about her. They wrote down what they could come up with. Anastasia sat down and looked at the pale Marcus. The name of that friend, at whose house she had been with her daughter that evening, was Natalie. This just couldn't be. Although, if her friend had left, why had she completely stopped maintaining a relationship with Anastasia? They hadn't argued. Anastasia had always tried to help her, and in such a way that Marcus would not find out anything. They left the group home. They had all the documents, all the medical records, in short, everything that had been preserved from Kate. It had cost Marcus mere trifles. His wallet hadn't even gotten thinner. Well, shall we visit Stan's grandmother? Marcus, do you think Kate is still there? I don't know what to think. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But there are always exceptions. Valentina couldn't understand for a long time what they wanted from her. And when she did, she even laughed. How should I know where she went? She lived with me for almost 2 weeks. Was I supposed to feed her and her kid? Even when Stan married her, we all said, taking a girl from an orphanage is madness. They never become normal people. Aren't you ashamed? She's alone with a small child. Marcus even raised his voice. The old woman looked at him attentively. And you look a lot like her. Are you some kind of relative? That's none of your business. Do you know where she went? No. But you can imagine. I didn't do it out of malice. It was just time to know her place. And besides, I didn't know she had such relatives. Marcus winced as if from a toothache. So where could she have gone if you think about it? Well, maybe to the train station. There's nowhere else to spend the night here. No one will let her in. They went out into the street. The stars were shining brightly in the sky. The old woman was mincing next to them, looking into Marcus's eyes. I can show you where the station is. I can walk you there. It's a long way, of course, but you're all in cars, you can give an old woman a ride. Marcus stopped, barely restraining himself from saying something rude, and answered calmly, Go home, Grandma. We'll manage on our own. They rushed towards the station. Together, they searched it up and down several times. But they didn't find anyone who looked like Kate with a child. They even attracted the attention of the police. When they realized what a well-known person in the city was actually doing at the station, one of the officers asked, Have you been to the bus station? Few people spend the night here because there's a patrol around the clock. But over there they might. They drove to the bus station in silence. When Anastasia got out of the car, Marcus looked at her with alarm. Anna, are you all right? She sat down on the running board of the car. Marcus, wait. Let's sit for 5 minutes. I don't feel well. Why, did something happen? Anastasia looked up. I don't know. Just now, while we were driving, I was thinking, and what if she's not here? Then what? No leads. Stop it. Now we know her name, and in general we know a lot about her. Anastasia nodded. Yes, that's right, we'll find her. But it's not her. Marcus even squeezed his eyes shut. Now I don't understand anything. You don't want to go in there. I do. You heard everything yourself. Natalie brought the girl. It can't be such a coincidence, you understand? It can't. By the way, Greg has already made inquiries. That friend of yours moved not far away. She started drinking there and died of alcoholism 5 years after she arrived. Anastasia looked at Gregory, who was standing nearby. He was resourceful, calm, but at the same time young. He had come right after the army. First as a watchman, then as a security guard, and then as a chief. Anastasia considered him almost a son. Greg, go and see. My legs won't hold me up at all. Kate knew that Paul was cold, because he was pressing himself closer and closer to her. She held her son to her and dozed off herself. She tried not to sleep, but fatigue was taking its toll. Catherine. She jumped and opened her eyes. A young man was looking at her and smiling kindly. We've been looking all over for you. Let's go, they're waiting for you. Who? Let's go, you'll see. Let me help you. Paul woke up and looked at the stranger with fear. Greg held out his hands to him. Kate was about to say that he was afraid of strangers, but Paul went to him. It was of course amazing. She obediently stood up and followed him. Her son was with him anyway, so she would follow him anywhere. They approached an expensive car. Kate's heart began to pound, because she saw that same woman. She had seen her fleetingly once and had not been able to forget her since. She didn't know why. She seemed like an ordinary woman, but no. Marina, is that you? Kate swayed. This voice. In her head flashed her own crying, Kate's crying because this voice was not there. Kate whispered in confusion. Mom! A minute later, they were standing, embracing, all together, and everyone was crying. Anastasia, Kate, and Marcus. And Greg was holding Paul in his arms and explaining, "Well, that's it, my boy, your troubles are over. Now you have such a grandfather and grandmother that no one has ever had." That night, Kate and Paul stayed with her parents, and somehow they couldn't fall asleep for a long time. And then Kate herself didn't understand how Greg managed to make Paul follow him everywhere like a little tail. And a year later, Kate and Greg got married. If you enjoyed the story, I would very much appreciate your support with a thumbs up. Stay with us, we have many more interesting life stories.